On today's episode 7 of Sculpt N Create, I'm joined by a powerhouse in both the entertainment and mental mastery space, Dr. Albert Bramante. Dr. Bramante wears multiple hats. He's a talent agent, psychology professor, and a hypnosis/NLP coach, blending the worlds of performance, mindset, and transformation like few others can. He's best known for helping actors and creators overcome self-doubt, break through self-sabotage, and tap into their full potential, both on and off the stage. With a PhD under his belt and his first published book out in the world, Dr. Bramante is a testament to what hard work and perseverance can truly create. From working behind the scenes with talent to empowering minds with psychological tools, his journey is all about unlocking greatness through belief, strategy, and mindset mastery. This conversation is one for anyone ready to break mental barriers, especially if you're an artist, entertainer, or just someone striving to level up creatively and personally. Let's dive in. Welcome to Sculpt N Create, where fitness fuels creativity and helping artists and entertainers with their physical, personal, and career growth. I'm your host, Trea Da Fit Artist, and who I got with me today is Dr. Albert. How you doing, Doctor?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Man, glad you can come on, man. So before we begin and get into everything, tell everybody where they can find you at.
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn or Instagram. Full name is Albert Bramante. So you can find me on Dr. Albert Bramante on Instagram, as well as LinkedIn and Facebook under Albert Bramante. And you can also go to my website, albertbramante.com.
Okay.
So very easily accessible.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's go. Always kind of like to give everybody, when you first introduction into the podcast and to the audience, kind of want to go into your background. So tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you come from, and, just the whole nine. Give us a little bit of background about yourself. And
sure.
As I see now, you a talent agent, psychologist professor, and hypnosis NLP coach. But let's go a little bit further from there, and then, we can kind of lead up to that from there.
Sure. Well, I born and raised, still live in New Jersey. Went to school for psychology and did my bachelor's, master, and PhD in psychology. I, started working with actors about 23 years ago. Did a little bit of acting myself. Wasn't really my lifestyle, but I enjoyed being around creative people, artistic people, like really feel my energy. So I decided to pivot to mentoring and kind of that involved into representing actors. So I represent actors for film, TV, theater, commercial, print, and voiceover in New York City.
Okay. All right, cool. And say you started with working with actors and so forth 22 years ago, you say?
Yes.
Okay. And then so what made you say one of the lifestyles, so what made you stop acting?
It wasn't for me, the lifestyle, the unpredictability, and just performing in itself. But I enjoyed being around actors and creatives in general, just being the energy. I fed off the energy of that. So that's when I decided, okay, well, more behind the scenes. So I helped out with film production a little bit, casting a little bit. And then I realized I loved actors. So I really want to work with actors. And that was like my whole feel thing. And that's what gave me, in a sense of what I want to do, in a sense, is work with actors.
Okay. And I kind of got a little bit of the acting bug growing up, and I was in a school play. I mean, not a school play, but a church play. And Jesus getting born in the major and so forth. And in that, I wasn't really even thinking about acting or anything at this time. But after that play, a lot of people came up to me, oh, you did so good. You did, man. You really, nailed that part and everything. And my sister was in it as well. She's like, I didn't get any of those, all those compliments and stuff like that. So that put the little bug in me to want to actually act. Now, I haven't actually done it, but that's definitely on the that's definitely something I want to aspire to right now. It's just me really like making music and starting with that, and then kind of branching out into other things as well. But yeah, but I would like to talk about that more. Now you say the energy around being around actors. What is that like? Or, like, kind of explain that.
I just like the freeing energy, the I guess the genuine and the realness of
Hmm.
artists.
Okay.
I think that's where it kind of resonates into me. Because I mean, being an educator, also I've hung around like the Ivy League types and the other PhDs, and I don't really feel I belong. It's too stuffy for me, that the academic environment. But I just like
Hmm.
the freeing aspect of being around artists,
Okay.
and just watching stuff being made is really exciting.
Definitely. Yeah. So I like creating myself, and just you don't have to be anything in an artistic manner, but just putting up a table, a computer stand or something like that.
Yeah,
It's very, in a sense, it's just weird, but it's very therapeutic. Doing, just creating stuff.
100%. It is very therapeutic and very very, it's a good outlet. So,
Hmm.
and that's just do anything artistic related.
Yes, sir. So now, like, so what do you necessarily do when you working with actors? Like, what is your description, or how do you,
Sure.
work with them?
I'm almost an employment agent for them in a sense where my role is to find day to day jobs for them.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's, in a TV show, a big part in a TV show, a big part in a movie, on stage, or it's a commercial. So that's what I do on a day to day basis. You know, uh, Throughout time, like, we'll find myself consulting with them on
Mm-hmm.
strategy,
Okay.
marketing materials, portfolios, demos, things of that sort. So I've consulted them on that. And then, sometimes even just talking them through some of the hardships of the industry.
Okay. So would you say you working with pretty much people who already got the experience, or a little bit more established in the game?
Yeah, I don't really necessarily work with beginning actors. I work with professional full time actors. Not someone who says I want to wake up and decide to act tomorrow.
Okay.
It's somebody who's usually went to school or did some significant training.
Okay. I got you. And you say you're getting like job placement, kind of critique their style and stuff like that, so that you
Yes.
can get placed and stuff like that. Okay. And what ways do you help them prepare to, I guess, just basically expound on their particular abilities and gaining more roles and stuff like that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I help them pick out their headshots, the pictures that they're going to
Okay.
use, which one is more popping and more visual, more representative of who they are. I help them, reword their resume sometimes, and just put things in order. And then I advise them on what, clips to use, because usually those come with clips from TV shows or films
Hmm.
or other things that they've worked on that showcase their acting. And I'll help guide them, about what works, what might not work.
Okay. Okay. And do they come to you like other than like the actual talent? Do they come to you for, as say for instance, they look, their image and stuff like that, they need to look a certain way to get a certain role because you got, or have a certain type of skill and something to get a certain role? Do they come to you with that, or yeah?
I mean, for acting, I mean, sometimes it's look, but also it's really how they can convey the character.
Okay.
Often it's about being real. At least in the New York City acting scene, it's about real people, everyday folks. That's
Okay.
representative of New York. So, I mean, certain actors that they could sing or dance, obviously, I'm going to be submitting them more for Broadway and trying to get them on a Broadway show, or at least a regional theater show.
Mm.
Um, some of my clients are good at doing stunts, fight choreography, weapons training. So I'll look for shows that are looking for people that with tactical skills. So things, whatever they're good at, is usually what I'll generally tend to do in a
Okay.
sense.
And just kind of, I guess, make something good better, even more better, basically.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Okay. All right. And now, so let's talk about, like what you were saying when it comes to, I know you have a book stating you speak on your book, but I know let's talk about the self-doubt and mastering self-sabotage, because I think that speaks not only to actors but people outside of that realm of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Even though the book was geared towards actors, it really applies to anybody. And so I feel like the audience is definitely, can work with anybody in any profession. So when I first started, being an agent, and this was in the early 2000s, I was noticing that a lot of actors were saying one thing, that they wanted to work, they were hungry, and yet their actions were not adding up. They were self-sabotaging. They were, blowing off auditions, or not preparing for auditions, or finding excuses not to go on auditions. And it really threw me for a loop, because I was wondering, well, these are the same people that say they want to work. What's going on here? And so that kind of took me a while to reflect. While I was doing this, I was also going for my PhD, and for my PhD thesis, we had to solve like a real world problem that affects, that's important to us. So that was the thing I decided to investigate, was why actors self-sabotage. So that received my PhD in 2015, and then for a couple of years I was toying with the idea I want to turn this into a book, and then I really got serious like in 2023 and published the book.
Okay. And just for everybody listening, what's the name of your book?
Sure, it's called Rise Above the Script: Confronting Self-Doubt and Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists.
Okay. So can you I know you want them to read your book and so forth, but can you
Sure.
kind of go ahead.
Well, I have, there's five major units in the book. So I talk about self-esteem, and how that affects you. There's low self-esteem and toxic high self-esteem. There's, which can, impact self-sabotaging behavior. I talk about a concept known as self-efficacy, which really refers to one's ability to believe how successful they are already at something. And that has a lot to do with kind of like belief in yourself. And then I look at personality factors, the big five, which is like, openness, conscientiousness, agreeableness, extroversion, and neuroticism. And then I have another unit which I talk about fear of success, imposter syndrome, fear of money, and how all that relates to self-sabotaging behavior. And all throughout the book, there's different strategies that I kind of talk about, like goal setting, self-monitoring, a little bit of affirmations, way to keep connected to things, how to step outside your comfort zone is one of the techniques I often say, to do something that makes you uncomfortable.
Okay. And are these things that you're talking about in your book that you help with your actors that you work with and so forth as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason why I want to expound on it too more is because I can not just speaking on my clients that I have helped in the fitness realm, but I'm just speaking from my personal experience. Now, I have talked about this with Esther. She was a guest on my podcast as well, but I was going through a little bit of imposter syndrome or self-sabotage as well, when I was offered a opportunity to speak at a particular school, and the guy wanted to basically show people that other than a doctor, lawyer, the normal thing that people aspire to be. Yes. He wanted his kids to know of other things, since I was a trainer, and he wanted like people to see his other ways that you can make money and inspire to be and so forth as well. And I just talked myself out of there, like it's too far. Like what I'm gonna say. Then another person as well wanted me to be on her talk show, kind of a local talk show that she had here, and same thing. I'm like why does she? And it was the early part of my career. Like I'm just starting, just really getting my feet wet, and I'm like, what does she want with me? Why does she want talk and so forth? So those type of things, like it's full circle now that I'm doing this. You know what I'm saying? But I want to speak to that because it's a lot of people that definitely, not just the actors, and this because that's what this podcast is for, artists, entertainers. But I want you to speak on that, like how like what things are that they can like do like quick mindset shifts, or what can they notice about themselves when they start thinking of imposter syndrome, when they kind of like thinking they're an imposter and almost getting to that point where they are self-sabotaging, like what things can they do to like avert that?
Sure. Well, the first thing is just to normalize it. This is a normal thing that everybody goes through. From time to time, you're going to have thoughts that pop in your head, and that might say, "Is this word?" And I would say one thing is just treat them as thoughts and not as beliefs. They're thoughts and let them go. Let them get out of your mind quickly. That's the first thing. And also stay connected. I mean, like in your case, you worked hard to be a trainer and to be certified to get a trainer. That that's something alone should be enough. Just like with an actor, they went through the training, they went through a BFA or MFA, or they spent, $60,000 on a conservatory. They spent a couple of years studying, so they have the skill set needed. Well, I would say just stay connected, and also watch the language you use too around. Because the language we use to communicate to other people as well as to ourselves is very important. So, like I tell my client, every actor I know is to get rid of the struggling artist or starving artist out of your vocabulary.
Yeah. And
because then, well, no, and what you're doing then is just setting yourself up for failure right there.
Yeah, and I agree with that, man, because I think when it comes to, if you saying you gonna start making music, you gonna be an actor, comedian, all these artists and entertainment roles, where when you first start out, the stigma people already put on you, they thinking you already like, oh well, he not making any money, or he or she's not working, or they struggling and stuff like that. Because you always hear the starving artist. That usually was the connotation going with that. And I think that carries on not only what people perceive of the position that you're in, but it also carries into your mindset. Because like if you are a struggling artist, say quote unquote that, or maybe just in a certain financial situation, it kind of can seed into you thinking that, and then as you said, you act as that, and that can definitely help, and it definitely leads to the self-sabotage. Would you say that or agree to that?
100%. Yeah, it definitely does, especially in the artist world. The performing artist. It's a exciting but also a tough role to be in sometimes, because you're dealing with a lot of no's, and probably more so no's than you are going to get yeses. So it's dealing with that, and just that alone can add up to the thing. And how you look at that is important. Because one of the things, even with my background in NLP, is there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. So look at the opportunities that you missed, even if you made a mistake or made an error. Use that as a learning opportunity to catapult you further. So in the future, your next success is a lot better in the sense, because now you've learned. So the failures are feedback. And I also discourage performers to get rid of the word rejection out of their vocabulary. Because a lot of times I'll hear people say, I want to be an actor, but there's a lot of rejection. No, because it's not personal. There's only one person that can get the role.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you watch Living Single, but the guy that played Kyle on there, he was talking about that. Somebody was interviewing him, and he was like, he went for a role, and he didn't get it, and they were like, did that hurt you? And they're like, nah, because I understand that it could be something little, man. It might be the way my hair is, or my height, or something that they specifically looking for.
Yes.
And for the role, or my voice too deep, or something like that. And so it's nothing really like personal in that per se, and with that. So yeah, so I'm glad that you said that. Now I would say too, what adds on to self-sabotage or self-doubt is fear. You know, especially when you're going into the unknown and not really knowing what's what. And then kind of to alluding to what you had said earlier about fear of, you know, failure. I think that goes with that as well. You know, you don't put your heart out into this, and you don't told everybody you're gonna do this. I'm gonna be this big shot actor. You're gonna see my name on the marquee in 5 years, 2 years, 3 years on into it, and so forth. And you're not really getting anywhere, and that doubt and that fear and all that stuff like that you never gonna get there kind of seeps in. Would you say that's a accurate observation on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Fear is a big, powerful thing. It's just in general for all human beings. It's one of the most intense emotions, and one of the ones that really hold us back. If you think about the word fear, it's really false evidence appearing real. That's what it stands for. If you think about
Right.
it. So, that's what needs to be overcome. And comfort is the biggest addiction too. It's a big addiction. Comfort, staying in your comfort zone, doing what's comfortable.
I
Very
agree with
easy
that.
to shoot down that, oh, I'm not going to do this performance. I'm not going to do this audition. It's out of my way, and you come up with excuses as to why you're not going to do it, and then you're holding yourself back.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you're kind of holding yourself back in a sense by doing that. So, yeah, I mean, there's also fear of change. We don't like to change. Sometimes doing certain things are going to cause us to change. And another fear that's also not really talked about a lot is fear of success. We talk about fear of failure.
Let's talk about that. Yeah, that's a new one on me. Fear of success. Like, now I heard of like survivor's remorse, or stuff like in the sense of that. But fear of success, that's a new one on me. So let's talk about that. What is that?
Well, it could be someone in a form of survivor's remorse, like you may feel guilty that you're successful. Let's say you're with a group of friends or your family that are doing the same thing, and you become successful, and other people do not. So there might be that guilt of you moving forward and they're not. And also, depending on the circle you're around, some people are threatened by your success. Even some people that you say are so-called friends and family might be threatened by your success. So that being successful means your life is going to change, more responsibility, and that might put some of the relationships that are important to you in jeopardy. Especially if the other people are threatened. So you don't want to lose that. And so therefore, that added responsibility, that added guilt can sometimes kick in, and therefore it's just that now it becomes terrifying to actually succeed, because now if I succeed, now if I hit that success, if I land that contract role, if I ran that record deal, if I land several contracts, my life is going to change.
Okay. I got you. Kind of like, like they always say, it's lonely at the top. As soon as you get a certain success, like you just said, everybody change, and people like wanting to attack you for, always ask you for money. Some people want to sue you because you got money. Everybody, this person want to sleep with you because you got money, and you just don't really know what's what. And then you being a level of fame too, you can't really go out the door and being who you really, who you used to be, and I think of the rapper Andre 3000. Once he got, they were saying once he got big, he kind of dampened his light a little bit. You're like, oh, this too much and everything. So he kind of like stayed in hiding, and he'll pop out every now and then, but he didn't really like the fame. And I have heard actors too as well, like child actors, and even now, where they get out the limelight, because I guess those could be some of the reasons. I don't know the whole plight of being an actor, but I'm guessing so those are some of the reasons as well.
Yeah, and what's surprising is a lot of performers, even musicians, are introverts by nature. So, yes, they may act like they're extroverted, but they're doing it for the art, not necessarily for the not for the people, aspect. They're doing it because they're conveyed with the art. So, a lot of times, just being in the spotlight can be scary. To have hundreds of people sometimes surrounding you, can be scary at times, and sometimes you just want to be alone. I've even seen, and I've met a lot of actors, even some A-list actors who, are very bold and loud when they're in their roles, but yet as people, they're very soft-spoken and quiet.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like every time you talking, it's somebody else coming to mind. Zach Moore is from Saved by the Bell. That his character, and I heard him off set or off stage, and he's not even like that. And a lot of people was coming to him thinking he had that type of charismatic. He might be charismatic, but they thought he wasn't really like shy or introverted or anything like that. And there's other people I have heard of too like that, where people tend to think that they are that person that they play. So
Yeah.
I guess in a sense is a credit to their actual acting, what I'm saying? Because that's what acting is about, being somebody who you're not. So, that could be a credit, but at the same time, there could be the other side of the coin where, as you stated, that, it's a level of success, is a level of extra attention that they might not want, especially being introverted and so forth.
100%.
And it's funny you said that most people are introvert. I have been called an introvert in my day and everything. I'm a sort of a loner and everything, so I don't mind being to myself. I can be, as a fitness coach, you gotta be social.
Yeah.
In settings and everything, I can be extroverted in setting, but I definitely to myself. But that definitely explains a lot. I really didn't think about most artists are introverted in that sense. So I said that really explains a lot. Then, that's our way. When I think about it, that's our way of expressing ourselves and getting the message out, like something that we want to convey. And everything like that. That I go back to when I write literary works and stuff like that. If it's something I'm thinking about, I want to, if I want to not feel it anymore, I just really want to get it out and everything. That's what I put it on there, put it on paper and stuff like that. And then for people who make music, they put it on, on wax as well to get that said message out and everything like that. Something that they want to say, but they can really put it into music or into a role and stuff like that as well. Okay, cool. So I'm glad that you said that. So what else like that you, I noticed that you said you're a hypnosis and NLP coach. So definitely dealing. So talk about that part of it. Is that still related to helping with actors, or is that something totally different?
It's related. I mean, that's where I came up with like a lot of the language stuff, earlier about using the type of language, and even your identity too, because part of how you identify is going to be how you approach things. So if you walk with that identity of I'm a professional, you're gonna be much more proactive rather than if you walk around saying, yeah, I'm a starving artist or I'm a struggling musician. Well, you're pretty much then, your identity, that's your identity in a sense. That's what you're going to be approaching, everything as struggle and as hardship. So that's why I say, like, watch the language that you use.
Okay. Gotcha. So there's more so getting into the mental aspect of like how do you talk to yourself in a sense.
Yes.
Okay. So the hypnosis part, I have talked with somebody that does a couple people that does hypnosis type of mental practices. So can you explain that? Like, what is that about?
That's working with, there's two levels of our mind, the conscious mind and the subconscious or unconscious mind, which is more the unconscious, subconscious mind is what we may not necessarily be aware of, but that automatically guides our behavior, runs our behavior. And so sometimes if you have beliefs that you may not realize that you're having, and that's where hypnosis can come in and kind of work with those beliefs, go explore the subconscious mind, and work on improving them. So this way it more aligns out with your conscious mind, and now you can start being successful. If you want to look at the conflict between those two minds, I mean, you're, being a trainer, you'll see so many people say, this year I'm going to get in shape. And then a weekend and they're out of the gym. They're coming up with excuses, even though they have all intentions of going to the gym, they have other things that are holding them back. So, and that's with anything too. It's like, any type of change that we want to make, that there's stuff that is holding us back that we're not aware of. And so hypnosis can kind of help you keep aware of that by using like light relaxation or putting someone in a light, like meditative state.
All right, so I know I gotta put a little joke in here. So you ain't doing the little clock thing and whatever.
I was about to say that, because a lot of people think, when they think hypnosis, a lot of times they think, okay, I'm going to be swinging the pocket watch, and then, I'm going to drop people and they're going to start acting like chickens. Like, that's funny, but it's not the truth. As a matter of fact, we go into hypnosis several times a day, the state of hypnosis. Like, so think about it. For anybody who's ever driven like maybe 2 hours or 3 hours, and that time just flew by, and you're sitting there going, well, wait, what did the time go? Because you zoned out into a trance. Or if you watch a movie that could be 3 hours and you don't even realize the time went by. Or you just get caught so much into the movie that you start getting emotional. Even though you knew in ill intention of what you're watching is fake.
Okay. All right.
That's going into a trance, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I always like when you said about the driving and everything. I know, like, if you're driving a long trip, it usually end up being like the trip coming back usually feel like it's shorter than the trip going and everything. So that's what it is. You in a trance in a sense. So what I guess you're thinking about home and so
you just zone right out, and even though your unconscious mind is still keeping track of the road, and maintaining the safe driving and all that, your conscious mind just happened to go for a little bit of a break.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, you definitely right. And I always tell people that us as fitness coaches, trainers, that when we helping our clients out, it's not just do these many reps, eat this, stuff like that. It's also mental things that we gotta help them with. So in a sense, I have that type of where you gotta get into the brain of why they do certain things. Not to say I'm fully doing what you're doing. I didn't go to school with this, but it's certain. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely you're absolutely correct there.
Yeah. So why they how they approach food, how they approach working out. You find yourself doing that a whole lot more than actually telling them, do this many reps, do this workout, eat this. You really doing the mental stuff. Like I said, it's really, when it comes to everything, it's really how you do mentally, and everything else will follow. The body will follow, and everything from there.
Yes.
So, okay. Yeah, so like, in what ways do you help with this with the actors or just artists in general? But you particularly more like work with actors mostly, right?
Yeah. Well, I also guess I work with students too, because I'm a college professor. So a lot of it is just changing our mindset. Again, developing, helping with your identity, helping with your mindset. And a couple of vocabulary shifts too, like rather than saying I have to do this, shift it to I get to do this. So like even in your with going to the gym, rather than saying I have to go to the gym to work out, switch it to I get to go to the gym to work out. I get to work out.
Sounding like me now.
Because now when you say and it's one word. This is where like the neurolinguistic for NLP comes in. One word shift from I have to I get to. Because now it becomes more empowering.
Yeah.
So, for even actors, it's like, you don't have to audition, you get to audition.
Yeah.
And when you switch that, and also don't use the word try. Get rid of the word try out of your vocabulary. I will. It's not like I'll try my best. I will do my best. And I will try my best. I will do my best. Because when you say the word try, it almost signifies that you're not going to be successful in what you're going to do.
I said that now in the last interview. I was saying, we people make excuses, on how they not able to do a certain thing. I said, well, make an excuse on how you can. Get, like you said, I get to do this, or I can do it because of this. I said, it takes no more effort or thought into it to switch that brain and say, I can do it, and then you would start thinking about how you can do said thing. And then, it's a whole, I forgot who said the quote, but it was like, whether you can or can't, you right. You know what I'm saying?
And that's absolutely right. And that's, when you automatically use the word I can, it's like game over at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's simple shifts like that in your vocabulary
Hmm.
and the language that you use. It's so simple, but yet it's so hard to understand for a lot of people who actually do in practice.
Right. And I think like I say, even I fall victim to it as well in my at this juncture of my career, but it's always something I would tell people. You got to practice daily. And everything like you said with the word try. I try to every time my a client say, "Well, I'm trying. I'm gonna try to do this." I don't know. You can do it. And what's the I forgot to get the he's a motivational speaker. He had said something like that. I'm forgetting his name, but he was like he told somebody to try to pick up this chair, and the person picked the chair up, and he was like, "No, I said try to pick up the chair. You did pick up the chair," and that
Yeah.
gave a mental shift of like, okay, the difference between trying and doing, and stuff like that. So I guess so when you say try, what would be the better word for to do that? Would it be the attempt, or like to get those mental changes in your mind to
And it's like, well,
start?
let's work on doing this now.
Uh-huh.
So this way work on doing so for they may not be able to do it in the first trial run,
Uh-huh.
but let's work on this now. Or
Uh-huh.
let's do this now. And
Okay.
this way just don't leave the room no room for interpretation.
Okay. Okay. And like I said, I'm thinking a lot of stuff like the guy who said is he haven't failed so many times, but he successfully found out how many ways not to do it. I forget
Yeah.
if you know who I'm talking about.
I know
Stuff like
the quote, and that's links to what I said before. There's no such thing as failure, only feedback. So it's information, it's learning.
that. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And like I said, that I feel like that's very important, man. Basically, what we tell ourselves on a daily basis, and for just achieving anything in the whole. So like as when you first came on here, for us to talk, you were stating that it could be some overlap in between actors getting a role and so forth, or self-sabotage and also the imposter syndrome. So like, can you like tell us some ways that a person like maybe going for a career uh that's an entrepreneur such as myself and yourself as well, and going towards where they don't have that self-doubt and self-sabotage or imposter syndrome?
Well, the first thing is connect to your why. Like, why are you doing this?
Okay.
And remember that even if you have to print it out, put it on your refrigerator, put it on your wall.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you
Mm-hmm.
doing this? Why are you, being a trainer? Or why are you being a business owner? What's about this business that's exciting you? And just keep remembering that.
Okay.
Even if there's a little bit of discomfort, I would say you learn to use it as your friend, as your tool, that you're doing the right
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
And through a time, and do small actions daily,
Yeah.
whether it's as an actor going on auditions or as a business, making pitches out to people, whatever it is you need to do, just do some actions. And I'd say sometimes it's good to just rip off the Band-Aid and just do it. Like,
Right.
don't even
Okay.
think and try. Don't be like arguing with yourself. That's why even sometimes with like even going to the gym, just go to the gym. Don't even think about it. Just go.
Mm.
Because if you
Okay.
sit there and think of, it's so easy to talk yourself out of doing something you're not comfortable with.
Yeah, definitely. And I just thought about this too. As me and being an artist in other rounds, I think of the perfectionism comes into play. So can you speak to that? Because I think like we want things to be perfect, all the
Yeah,
ducks in a row.
and a lot of times there's a difference between setting high standards for yourself and then being a
Mm.
perfectionist. They're two different
Mm.
things. Very often we are lacking something in ourselves that why we become perfectionists. Whether it's maybe they could be even something from our childhood. That maybe we didn't get enough attention or validation as a child, and therefore we need that as an adult, and therefore we are searching for that validation by being perfect. If we think, okay, if I'm perfect, then everyone will love me, everyone will accept me. So it's really coming from a place of trauma, from a place of more pain when you're a perfectionist. And the downside with being a perfectionist is that there's a low tolerance for making mistakes,
Yeah.
having setbacks. Again, usually when people are perfectionists, they will either start to procrastinate, put things off. And, as a college professor, I cannot tell you how many times my students have procrastinated. I see this every class that I taught. I have a number of students that will wait to the actual last minute before something is due to work on it.
Okay.
And I think a lot of it has to do with being a perfectionist. Sometimes it's too anxiety sometimes inducing to work on these things, at a certain time. That's where I even, started studying with one of my other coaches that I work with, believe that even procrastination, is a traumatic response. People who've been procrastinating a lot might have been dealing with some unresolved trauma in their life.
Okay, expound on that a little bit. So, like, the procrastination being a traumatic response.
Well, a lot of it has to do with fear, hesitation, fear of change, and even work. That could even take the form of the imposter syndrome, where it's like, well, I'm not going to do this because no one's going to really take me seriously, and that's why you have, people that sign up for so many things and never use them. And I'm sure you know that in your world too.
Yeah, most definitely, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you think? What the traumatic experience is? They tried something in the past and it just didn't work out.
It could be that maybe they, or it could be even a relational trauma where they didn't get something as complex as they didn't get enough approval from their parents or their family growing up. They felt unloved and unwanted or overlooked, and that could be over time of having this repeated experience can be a traumatic response.
Okay.
And could cause a traumatic reaction. So, and that can lead to, starting to self-doubt and starting, even set impossible high standards for yourself.
Okay. And the reason why I said it because I consider myself in certain instances a perfectionist, and I do overthink a lot, and I be wanting to do, even when I started training, like I was thinking it should be a certain way before I actually start. I like have everything outlined before I do it, and I have learned over time that doesn't, like I said, it is a form of procrastination, and it does hinder you from actually starting something, and then you waiting for something to be perfect that probably will never happen. And I want to start, like, once you said earlier, when you just do it or go to the gym or just do the thing that you saying you need to wait to do or you scared to do, just do it. And on the other side of that, you be like, man, I'm thinking I had to do all this, and then it didn't take all that, or it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And I think that speaks to that a lot, where once you step out of your comfort zone, all this stuff coming back again, like what we were talking about, you see something, you see growth at the end of that.
Of course, and and I've talked to even people who dread going to the gym. Once they get to the gym, they're like, "I'm glad I went," or I feel much better now. So, or even any task, it's like a lot of them. Sometimes I even hear people say, "I felt foolish. I was so scared of doing this," and it really wasn't that bad. And that's why when I said earlier, usually fear can be false evidence appearing real. That a lot of times we envision things a lot worse in our mind than what they actually are going to really be. And the one thing also that I often tell people that the brain does not know the difference between fiction and reality. So if you dwell on things and you make yourself sad over things, you're going to create that sad reality for you. On the other hand, if you visualize yourself, every time you have to do something, whether it's a match or a meeting or an audition, watch yourself doing the task in your mind and play it through that it's going very, very well, because the mind does not know the difference between fiction and reality.
Okay. I have heard that a lot in sports, where visualizing, like I think Kobe was one of them, visualize yourself as shooting the basket and getting it in, stuff like that. So, a lot of things you definitely, like I said, it goes back into us really just what we telling ourselves and making that, in a sense, I would say in the midst of all this is a certain statement of like manifestation in a sense. What we think about ourselves and putting into light and everything. Would you say that could be akin to that as well?
Yeah. Part of with manifestation is important, but so is working for it.
Okay.
You know,
Oh
I
yeah,
can,
definitely.
I can sit and manifest. I want to, make $1 million, but if I don't do anything to do that,
Mm-hmm.
just like the same thing. If you want someone says I manifest a muscular body, well, what are you going to do about that? What are you doing about that? Because sitting around isn't going to happen. But
Right.
I do think when you have that mindset going that I am this or I am, you start to be more driven to succeed. Because even
Mm-hmm.
when I first started my agency, when I first started working with like especially film and TV actors, I was going around kind of telling people I already booked for people on TV shows, even though I
Yeah.
really haven't. And I kind of said, yes, it was a white lie, but I found that within not even 2 months of doing that, I landed like 3 back-to-back small TV contracts.
Wow.
And I think it
Okay.
was because that mindset shift. So sometimes they even say like, act like it's already there.
Yeah. And the adage fake it till you make it in a sense.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. So it's like and like anything else that we haven't touched on that you would like to emotionally.
I think that's pretty much it. I would just the language again. A lot of this stuff sounds really simple to practice, but it's very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And the important thing is to be consistent, not just one time to do it.
Yeah.
Like with a visualization, you should do that every day, a couple times, several times a day, not just one time and then expect that it's going to be a miracle.
Okay. Definitely. So this is you talking about that. This is what you saying in your book, or are you
I
just
talk
saying
about
in
that
general?
about my book. I also, just another thing is watch the company you keep, and I talk about this in my book too.
Mm-hmm.
That you can, and a lot of motivational speakers said this, like Tony Robbins have said this, that
That was the guy I was
yeah,
talking about with
yeah,
the chair thing. Okay, but go ahead.
yeah, I'm gonna imagine that now. But Tony
Okay.
Robbins said, like, I can tell a lot about somebody just by the company they keep.
Mm-hmm.
So show me your 5 friends, and I'll show you. I'll tell you about who you are. And so, what I think is important, and I talk about this in my book too, is hang out with really successful people. So, for example, actors, hang out with actors that are more successful than you are right now, because that'll push you to work harder. Just like sometimes, when we hang out with hear about this all the time, kids hang out with the wrong crowd, other delinquents, they become delinquent themselves. But it can also be the opposite. You can, if you hang out with really powerful people, you can become more successful yourself.
Yeah. Okay. And some folks like kind of like I have heard that and have said it in certain circles, and some folks don't believe that. That okay, yeah, if I hang out around the people, these 5 people are just because I was just talking about this last week, and to somebody, he was like, yeah, these 5 people successful and everything, they could you still could not be successful in us. They probably ain't telling you how to be successful, and everything like that. What would you say to that?
Well, it's not necessarily even the techniques. You're just absorbing their mindset,
Okay.
and you're absorbing their energy, and you're seeing, because most of the time you'll probably see is them being very proactive and doing things and being a go-getter. And that'll rub off on you too.
You said being around them and absorbing their aura, their energy, how they move.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you just rub off their energy.
Okay, because I have heard when you being successful, like if it's a certain lane, like I'm a fitness coach, and I talked to another fitness coach that's successful. His journey or how he got successful might not be my journey to get there, and so he can tell me what he did, but then necessarily, and I do those same things, and it probably don't do anything for me, So
Right, because it didn't work for you. It's not necessarily about the techniques that they're using, just
mm-hmm.
the motivation that they have, the drive, the passion that they have, that will rub off on you.
Okay, all right. I like how you said that. So that's why I was saying, because
Yeah.
you look at this person like, man, I did everything that he said he said he did, and none of this worked, and everything. But it's really like more. I mean, I guess the more to it, like if you hang around that person, you will really see like on the day to day how they move and stuff like that and everything on
Yes.
that. Okay, all right, cool. Like I say, if there's anything else that you want to talk about, like I would say this, like, what would you say for the actors out there? Uh, I know you deal with people who are pretty much established and so forth. But what would you say to the ones that are starting though? I know like I said, you don't work with them
Well,
mostly, but like
keep doing your training. Keep taking classes. Keep working with a coach. Work on regional theater, community theater, church theater, if that's available. I would also work on some student films. A lot of colleges and universities have film departments, and part of their students that graduate, they have to direct and produce a film, and they need actors. So go volunteer and do those projects. This way you build a demo, you start building an experience. And just keep networking people, meet people while you're doing these things.
Yeah.
And just keep in touch and keep a Rolodex.
Okay. I say the networking important, like what we're doing right now. Because I don't think a lot of entertainers think about the networking side of things. They in their circles, but they not really trying to get anything out those circles, if that makes sense.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. All right. So now, is there anything else that you would like to talk about that we didn't cover?
That's it. I mean, I'm pretty much set.
Okay. All right, cool. So now, what would you say to the artists, entertainers, people who going out for their dreams, whatever it is that they need to be doing to stop the imposter, stop feeling of an imposter syndrome, to stop feeling self-doubt? What would you say be the biggest takeaway that they can get from here today and going toward their dreams and, leveling up?
Just, while you're, in a meditative state before you go to sleep or when you wake up in the morning, just the mantra that I often say is, I deserve to be here. I deserve this. I deserve this.
Okay.
I deserve to be here. I worked hard. And just keep saying that to yourself several times a day.
Okay.
You deserve a seat at the table. You're not, not unworthy of that.
Yeah. Okay. I like that, man. We can end that there here. Let everybody again know where they can find you, where they can get your book, so forth.
Sure. Well, my book is available on Amazon, Kindle, as well as audiobook, so you can listen to it while you're on your walk or on your drive. You can find me at albertbramante.com or follow me on Instagram at Dr. Al Bramante. And I'd love to hear from you. Thoughts, feedback, questions, or even just to continue this conversation.
Well, definitely, y'all check the doctor out and level up in life, man. All right, till next time, I've been your host, Trea Da Fit Artist, and it's Sculpt N Create, and my man, Dr. Albert.
Thank you again for the invite.
All right, peace out. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. If you are looking for fitness coaching to help you reach your goals, want to join our animated network for fitness guidance, collaborations, networking, and community, or are interested in being a guest on the show, check out the links in the description. Stay creative, stay fit, and we'll holler at you next time.